Come along and bring your kids to this level of football and you won't regret it. There's a sense of community here. My little boy comes every game now. I'm not your typical Exeter City fan, as you can tell from the minute I open my mouth. I'm from the southeast and I've sort of chopped and changed between a Premier League club and Exeter City, and I now live in Exeter and watch them home and a lot of away games as well. But I've got a kind of checkered history of living in the southeast and the southwest. I grew up supporting a large Premier League club in London. And that was, I would call it the golden days of football. I'm 45, so that would have been the late 80s I was going. Big terraces like this, but they had 30,000 people packed into them, you know, and it was before it got very corporate, you know. Then I went to university, travelled around a bit, lived in France, watched a lot of League Two football in France, fun enough, which I wouldn't want to do again. And then 1998, I came to live in Exeter for just a year. And it was a bit different to this. My first City game was Chester City at home, I believe, and they lost 1-0. And I stood over there in the cow shed, which was just as it sounds. It wasn't what I was used to. It was a bit ramshackle at the time, you know. Anyone who's here probably agree with that. But I liked it. I remember one game, some guy walked into the cow shed with a shopping bag, and he just walked along, talking to people. As he sort of got to the other end of the terrace. I don't even know if he stayed to watch the whole game, and I thought, this is nice, it's homely, it's a bit unusual, but I like it. So I watched every game that season, more or less, or probably about 15 anyway. But then I went away again, back to London, and followed City from then on, but only if they were playing in London. So I used to go and watch them at Leyton Orient, and they get quite heavily beaten, because at that time they were getting worse and worse, and they were soon to drop out of the league and go into the conference, at which time, funny enough, I started going back to Premier League football again, and that was a lot. I went to 20 games a season for a good 5-6 years, and I suppose I was looking for it to be as good as when I first started going in the late 80s, but it never was. It had changed a lot. Things I just couldn't really stomach, I suppose is the word. The sort of money the players were getting, the atmosphere in the seats had gone, really, it wasn't the same. The usual thing, the ticket prices, the food prices were going up and up and up, and I just felt really that someone was trying to make money out of me, and it's very difficult to follow and support a team that you feel isn't on your side. In my view, it stops being a club, starts being something else, a business, and we don't support, you know, I don't support my local supermarket. I buy things from it, but I don't support it, I don't want it to do well, and that's how I started to see this club. So, in the end, I had to stop going. That was that. Conscious decision, wave goodbye to the club, and I still follow them on TV, but you know, it's not that level of the game has gone for me. So family reasons, moved back to Exeter, and that was about 5-6 years ago. Straight away came back to Exeter City and started watching them fairly regularly, and it sort of grew and grew, and I found what I'd been looking for in terms of football. So obviously the ground is a different proposition now. This is the same, except it's got a roof on it now. But all the rest of it is different, and it's, you know, this is a club that's going places, I think, and I really passionately hope they go up to League One, because I think that's where this ground belongs and where the fans belong. And there's so many things that I would encourage people to come along to and see at League Two football, and stop watching. Well, not stop watching, but they'll get more out of it than sort of going to 2 games a year at Man United, you know, and staying in a hotel, and it might be a 0-0 with Burnley or whatever. Come along and bring your kids to this level of football and you won't regret it. There's a sense of community here. My little boy comes every game now with me. He goes away with me as well. He plays football for an Exeter local side in the morning, and then he comes along here and walks about the terrace, meets his friends, and half the team from the morning is here in the afternoon. Now, you won't get that many other places. I think you see a lot more girls coming to football now as well, and you see a lot more girls playing football. So, you know, you're building up your fan base for the next 80 years, aren't you? Potentially. And that's what's going to keep a club like this going places, is people coming through the gates. And so, yeah, everything that the club does, I think, is to build its fan base. I think it's working. It's a more vibrant place than it was probably maybe even 5 years ago, I would say, actually. You engage very well with people through the internet. Twitter and all the rest of it. It's probably of all the League Two clubs that I see featuring on the internet, it's probably the best. And yeah, there's a buzz about the place, I think. And my boy would say the same. He's 12. I used to drag him along here a little bit to start with. You know, he's because he's small, he thinks in terms of the big stuff. And wanting to go to London to watch Arsenal, and he's never been because I won't spend the money. But he's been won round by it. Particularly the community aspect and the fact that his friends are here, and also I think the players engage very well with the fans. You know, and you see a lot of that stuff on the internet as well, and you see it before the games and stuff. So yeah, it's a community club. I mean, I don't think you could do any more, to be honest. Do you know what I mean? To build that, and I think it's definitely working. And
we're stood right now on the largest standing terrace in the Football League, still remaining. There's something special about that, isn't there?
That's very, very important. I mean, if I say one thing out of this little interview, don't ever put seats on this terrace, because it's a special thing. It's the closest I've got to what I remember from 1987, 1988. You know, and for a big game like the Plymouth game this season, the 4-0 game, that was special. I mean, I've got videos of everyone running around at the front, jumping up and down, waving little flags and stuff. And I showed that to people back home, and they were quite surprised by it actually. Yeah, that's vital that you keep that vital, and it does remind me of my younger day. I must admit, you know, that's why I like coming and standing here, and that's why I wanted to do the little chat on this terrace, because I like it so much.
The atmosphere can be something special on those big games, can't it? And the players themselves say how much it drives them on during games to hear, that drum beat. And
yeah, it definitely does. It's a very precious thing, and yeah, you should never change it. Never change it. Not that there's anything wrong with sitting down at football if you want to. I would always personally stand up, and I like to think I'll always be able to here. If I go back to my first period of watching City, it would be Steve Flack, because he was like the only good player there, really. But now, obviously, last 5 years, 6 years. Nicky Law, innit, I think. It's got to be Nicky Law. He's a class above everyone else, I would say. They're all good players there. They're all good players. Randall Williams would be the other standout, I think. But Nicky Law, I think, it shows, doesn't it? Especially away from home. When you need a goal, he'll get that goal. Last week, for example, So, yeah, I'd say Nicky Law. But I like all of them. I don't think there's a single player in this lineup that isn't worth his place. Do you know what I mean? That's quite unusual, isn't it, if you think about it?
And what would you say has been the best moment you've had so far following the club?
Probably, I mean, I like an away win, but probably the obvious answer is the Ollie Watkins derby, innit? Where I was watching it from over there, and I took it upon myself to run down the steps when he scored the second goal, and it nearly killed me because I'm not the most fittest of people, as you can see. And I remember getting to the front there, and I probably should have had a lie down. But that would be the highlight of the 5 years. It's the obvious one, isn't it? Because we weren't in it for 20 minutes to go. But there's been others. The 4-0 game, same again. That was brilliant. But I like a hard-fought away win, 1-0. So the Forest Green one, actually, it wasn't the most exciting of games, but it was just there was something special about the way they did it. So that would be another highlight of mine. We know that players aren't going to stay down here if they've got, league championship clubs after them. We know that, and you can see the players that have gone. But the nice thing is that there's money built into those transfers to come back into the club. I mean, my boy texts me every time he thinks Ollie Watkins is going to get a transfer into the Premier League, because we think, well, City are going to get some money. Hasn't happened yet. I think it will, though. Do you know what I mean? And so, yeah, obviously these boys that come here, they've got a fantastic youth system here. They're not all going to be here for more than a couple of years. But if the club keeps taking money out of the transfers and building clauses in for the later transfers, then that's really good management, and that's already paying dividends, isn't it? So, well, it's the contrast between the Premier League and this club in particular, is that you feel that you're all part of a club. The fact that the people who own the club are running it in the club's best interests is vitally important, because in turn, they're not going to try and make money out of you. You're not putting the price of the pasties up every year because you can. You know what I mean? And I think the culture of a club's really important, because at the top level you don't feel like it's a club, it's a business. Here you feel like you're all on the same side, including the players, including the people selling the pies. When you go to an away game and the players get off the coach, like far away one, I went to Carlisle earlier last year because I was in the area and I thought, why not? I'm not going to pretend I make them sort of journeys every game. But yeah, when the players get off the coach, you feel like they're as glad that you're there as you're glad that they're there. Do you know what I mean? You've gone there together. It's a collective thing. You haven't got that at a Premier League level, I don't think, not anymore. But, you know, they're there because they're being paid, and they quite happily play for your rivals if they got paid more money. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, the fan-owned element and the community element, the club element here is really important, and that's why I like it. And that's why I come here as much as I can.